what really tests our strengths in our toughest moments. That's what I want to talk about today with Mary Beth. She is a Secret Service psychologist,
former
Secret Service psychologist, and you talk a lot about resilience and also about mindset matters.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here, and if you would like to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, as Ingo said, I am currently a forensic and clinical psychologist, but many moons ago I was a Secret Service agent, and after a short time I went into the private sector and became an international protection agent and an investigator. But my book that I wrote that was published 5 years ago is really about my years as a protection agent. Very little about the Secret Service, and then it moved into more of all the different missions that I chose and why and what happened. And some of them were total shit shows, but you can understand too that I only wrote about certain things and about certain missions for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Okay.
But as I said yesterday in my talk that you were sitting in, I didn't have the word at the time. But I think with my career that's been, from a Secret Service agent to a psychologist, has been like a roller coaster, like lots of great moments, lots of like tenuous moments, and that resilience, like I was saying, I didn't have the word for it at the time, but that is really something that I value in myself, that I think was what helped get me through. So now lots of people ask me to speak about resilience. I think COVID was a big impetus for that. The world is not a better place because of COVID, and a lot of people are still recovering. So resilience is something that's worthwhile in building.
Okay, nice. And what challenges do you see in the close protection field or in the security business?
Just in reference to resilience or just in general?
In reference to resilience, so for operators.
Yeah, well, I guess it goes hand in hand, right? Because, if you would have asked me, say, even a few years ago, yes, I think things in the world are crazy, but I would say just in the last couple of years, I just got the chills about some really, really impactful disasters and tragedies that have happened that really make you wonder where we're living. And you're safe nowhere, at least in this country. Jackie, a friend of ours, was just telling me about a stabbing at a Jewish synagogue in London. And I just feel like, young kids aren't safe in schools. We aren't safe shopping in a mall. We aren't safe seeing a movie. And that can create so much like communal anxiety.
Yeah.
And so I keep going back to, if we don't build our resilience, we're going to topple when our crises hit. Because crisis is going to hit, stress is going to hit. Yeah. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Especially in the industry. We deal with stress every day. But then when that crisis hits, the Charlie Kirk assassination, he had a protection team. So you can imagine what that's dominoed into.
No, I totally agree. And especially working in security, we have to go to the places where these incidents are, right? You talked about Charlie Kirk or the stabbing. So for work in police, you have to be deployed to a stabbing, for example, or shooting. Yes. With Charlie Kirk, he said he has a close protection team, private one, but also police probably being there on
absolutely.
Scene. So we're all seeing these moments, not only on TV, but maybe even in real life, because we have to respond.
Yeah, so, again, just got the chills. Like I feel that even more so. It's not to say that before we didn't, thank God that we were home and our protectee got home safe, but now there's just so much more challenge. Yeah, and it's also cyber, when you think about the attacks of protectees on, through, their children, through their home networks, through all that. So that's a whole other thing that didn't even exist when I first started working in the industries in the 90s.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So talking about your career, and you said it was a little bit like a roller coaster, up and downs.
Yeah.
So what have been like down moments for you personally where your resilience has been tested?
Yeah, the biggest one that would come to mind is when 13 months after becoming a Secret Service agent, I was no longer a Secret Service agent. So that was, my life's dream. And I was like, oh my God, and things happen for a reason. Like, I think they did me a favor, but in the moment, I did not think so. And why I say I think they did me a favor, because when you're a Secret Service agent, you have the resources of the U.S. government, because you're responsible for, the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, former presidents, visiting dignitaries, et cetera, et cetera. When you go into the private sector, my very first protection assignment was in Lima, Peru. I had one partner for my protectee, right? And we were everything. We were split because this guy was a partier. So he was night shift, I was day shift. And so you supposedly had help from some of the Peruvian police, but that was tenuous, and that's a longer story as to how we knew it wasn't something we could necessarily depend on. But my point is, in the private sector, it was such a challenge and challenged me as a human that made me so much more resourceful, so much more, and internationally, it's not just in my own country and speaking English, it's testing my Spanish and talking to locals to get help and being able to trust them. And just made me who I am, and then doing other things like private investigations, very different from carrying a badge.
Yes.
Right? And getting information. You got to figure out ways to get information through your own resourcefulness.
Yeah. No, I totally agree that changing from the government side to the private side, you think you know how the game is after a few years, but it's completely
very different. And you know this because you're getting launched into this industry. Is every mission is different. Every mission brings a new challenge, and I love that. I love the challenge.
Yeah. And also every client is different, right? Like
so different. You think, it's another wealthy family, but it's a completely different set of personalities and demands and issues, maybe some medical stuff, maybe some children's issues. So
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting.
Which is fun.
Yeah. So maybe if we go a little bit to psychology, what are systems that you're using to teach about resilience, for example?
Yeah. Mostly cognitive behavioral therapy. Why? Or I should say cognitive behavioral theory. Same thing, CBT. Because for me, cognitive behavioral theory, listen, when I'm doing therapy with clients, I use all different stuff. It depends on what they're bringing to session. But when I'm talking about resilience, it is a total mindset shift, and it's the ability to master our thoughts and self-talk, which is very cognitive behavioral, because cognitive in our brains creates emotions, and it takes our behavior and how we live life. So the cognitive, the behavioral, mediated by emotions, and then how are we living our life through all of this cycle of, it can start with a behavior, it can start with an emotion, but every single day, we have so much thought and self-talk, that sometimes we don't even realize, that we're harsh on ourselves, or we're good. We're like, that was really great. Or I could have done better. And that's okay to say that, but, we have to be careful, because those thoughts and self-talk really does as I say, what happens internally translates to our life externally. So for me, the cognitive behavioral makes sense on an everyday basis for building resilience.
Yeah. Yesterday on the talk, you had a slide where you said which sentence resonates the most with you. And for me, it was happiness comes from within. And that's kind of what you're saying, right? We have the self-talk, and if something goes good, like you had it, I just joined the Secret Service, I'm feeling great, and then I had to leave the Secret Service, I'm feeling really bad. So if we're saying happiness comes from within,
right,
we can talk to ourselves and say, hey, I can maybe make a chance out of it. It's bad now, but can be better in the future, and came out good for you, right?
That's not who I am. Like you said, that happiness comes from within. Who am I? That wasn't who I was. That's what I did for a living. It crushed me, in the moment, right?
Of course, 100%.
I became a long distance runner. That was how I dealt with the stress.
Nice.
I had an attorney, whatever, it's all in the book, whatever. But and I just knew that other things must have been waiting for me, but that was here,
What other things can we do to conquer stress besides doing
and I say this very respectfully, that everybody has to find what works for them. In other words, when I was teaching at the university level, I'd say, listen, mine was the long runs, but for somebody else that causes more stress, right?
True.
So you have to find what works for you, whether it's gardening, whether it's sitting in a coffee shop and spacing out, or writing, or looking at people, calling a friend, not calling a friend, right? Staying away from people and just being in your own world. Meditation, deep breathing, yoga, spiritual, some people, like Donna was saying yesterday, she likes to sweep, or this morning, it's cathartic for her. She just needs to kind of like organize her thoughts, you know.
Nice.
For me, I went on a run this morning, and that's where I was like, okay, like I'm good. So I think everybody has their own, you know, areas that bring them joy, and they have to remember to do that more often, as opposed to the stuff that constantly brings in stress and icky.
Yeah, no, I agree. How do you see religion in that case? Is it also something?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, for some people that can be the thing. It can be talking with a priest or a minister or whatever you call your religious person, a rabbi. It can be reading a passage from whatever book you read that's religious. It could be just sitting in a mass and just listening, and it's almost like a meditation or service. It's being in that community of whatever you belong to. So absolutely, religion.
Okay.
I say that along the lines of spirituality, but you know, it's really, again, sometimes community, but sometimes community can cause stress. So choose wisely. You know, sometimes we feel like we have to do things, as like say maybe it's affiliated with your children's school and you volunteer. Okay, that's temporary. You know, you did it, but make sure like you really, self-care is so important. I kind of hate the term, but I would just say taking care of yourself. And as I said yesterday, I said sleep, eating, and some type of movement are the basics.
Yes.
You know, and beyond that, I don't know, take a bubble bath, light a candle, talk to your therapist, talk to your priest, talk to your rabbi, talk to whoever, but don't isolate, because isolating can create anxiety, isolating can create depression. Isolating for temporary, for solace and for, you know, charging your battery is fine, but not too long. If you're isolating for not positive reasons, because you're ashamed or something happened and you don't want to share, then it's going to spin into something not positive.
Do you see difference between like the genders? Are men coping different with it than women?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, well, yeah. Expression of frustration and stress for women has traditionally been internal, and for men external. So, and it's not critical. Women will then get more anxious and more depressed. Again, traditionally, men externalize, so they're more angry and more violent, right? So that's how they've done it. But now I think with times changing, you know, some of us, we internalize, but like for me, I do a lot of internalizing, but then I go hit the, you know, pavement running, or hit the gym, or listen to music, or do something that helps me like process that and get it out. For men, I think, you know, more physical activity. Yeah, it just really depends on the person, but it's becoming a little bit more blurred. But traditionally, that's why you have more women traditionally, if women are going to suicide, it's more pills or cutting, and men gun or hanging, because it's more violent, it's more external, but that's also changing.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I think the gender issue is very interesting, and also age groups of, you know, how different age groups are dealing. And again, I wish I could talk to you before COVID happened, so that, because the world has just become such an anxious world.
Yeah.
It's scary, and it's, you know, I don't know about you in Germany, but here, where I live, you still see a lot of people wearing masks, and the fear is still real for a lot of people.
That's true.
And I just wish the government didn't create that fear. Like, I wish it could have been more, okay, we have this pandemic. Let's do some healthy things to boost our immune system. Let's fight this, right? And it just wasn't that. It was fear.
Yeah.
And our children, the long term of what is with the children is really sad to me. So when I think about age groups, what are those kids going to grow up to experience, you know?
Yeah.
Not just this thing that's called a pandemic, but now all these shootings.
Yes,
you know?
That must have done something to the children, definitely. Yeah.
Whew, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't grow up in that. I feel so fortunate,
yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've heard that children, or for children, like ages are not the same. Like for us, 1 year is 1 year, right?
Right.
But for children with the development, like 1 year kind of equals like 8 years or
Interesting.
something.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't know that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I need to look it up.
Yeah, no, but that sounds, because you're saying of the world today?
Yes, so
Okay.
because we said, oh, schools have just been closed for 2 years. But if you look at the age groups, like you're saying, if we look at 6-year-old children, what will happen in this 2 years, like from 6 to 8,
I see.
so much more than for me or for you,
Absolutely.
right? Who are grown
I
ups.
see what
so.
you're saying.
Yeah.
And to make up for that, listen,
Yes.
a lot of parents were great, but there were a lot of parents that made that anxiety worse.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
Yes.
So when you're exacerbating that and you're the person that's instilling that anxiety, how does that child recover? You can do therapy, but how do you instill safety? They don't have a sense of safety sometimes, especially if they've experienced a shooting or if they're allowed to hear about all the news. That's a little dangerous.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah, what would you recommend people who are maybe struggling with the stress of work or maybe even still COVID anxiety or something like that?
yeah, again, like I'm a therapist, so I would say therapy, but there's lots of different kinds of therapy. I don't say just you have to talk to somebody. There's animal therapy. There's art therapy. There's like coaches. Sometimes people just want like somebody to help them get more involved in their own life, and they want a coach because they just don't want the idea of psychology in their life. Totally fine, like whatever works for you. There's meditation, which is amazing for rewiring the brain, for calming the nervous system, for processing shit. I do think though, depending on how severe the anxiety or the trauma or the whatever, I think some of those things aren't enough on their own. So maybe talking to a priest or a spiritual, someone you trust, not just your friends, because your friends can get tired of it. Your friends can tell you what you want to hear.
True.
You want a true process of whatever it is that's impacting you negatively.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How can people reach out to you if they want to buy your book or go into
thank you.
coaching?
Yeah. My book is available on Amazon. It's called The Protector. It has a whole title, but you can look up The Protector, Dr. Mary Beth Janke. And my website is drmarybeth.com. And you can find my book on my website too. And you can always contact me on my website if you have any questions.
Yes, I will all link it in the description.
Oh, great. Okay.
And thank you very much for talking to me.
Yeah,
and
thanks
I
for
hope
having me.
that people will get more resilient in the future.
Yeah, well, write to me and ask me any questions you have.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, nice.
Did you get a therapy session out of it?
A bit right.